Hi, this is Heather Durone from the sonatasandpartitas.com. This video, once again, is not about a movement from a sonata and partita. It is, once again, about the prelude from the Prelude, Fugue, and Allegro. Now, recently I uploaded a video of myself playing that prelude, and then I uploaded another video, a very short tutorial video for guitarists that just discussed one passage. Technically, a lot of guitarists find it difficult, and I just explained how I use my hand in that passage to make it easy. And in that video, I just offered up that if anybody wants me to make a video about the structure of this piece, to let me know. And a few people did ask for that. And I'm happy to do this because I feel very passionate about understanding these large-scale forms in a way that can really put it in our hands, and so that we can play it really feeling like we know where we're going and we know when we're getting there, and we just kind of can hold this piece up rather than moving from one favorite part to another favorite part, or just feeling like we're meandering our way through this big long walk and then we get to the end. So I thought that for this video, one thing that would be a good way to start would be, let's say we were all in school and we had to do one of those labeling exercises, which I often complain about because I do not like doing labeling as music theory as a mean to its own end. But here we're going to start off with that. And so if we start off by circling, first of all, the little motive. And so the little motive would be this. So if we went through the whole piece and just circled whenever that motive was. And don't bother circling when it just is half of the motive. Like sometimes, we have, we just have the second half of it. Don't bother with that. So just when the full little motive is there. The other thing to circle is the tune. Then that's the whole tune. Like, it's a long tune. It goes on. So just mark the part of the tune that's the same every time, and that's just the first three measures. The last part, which we could call the tail, changes depending on how Bach wants to use it. In my score, I put dotted lines around it, but that's not really necessary. And then the last thing to circle would be the pedal. Now, I would just say go ahead and circle every time there's a pedal. It can either be in the bass, anywhere. Just find all the pedals and circle them. And so on my score, this is what I get. And now I want to go back and start at the beginning and kind of ask ourselves, why? Like, what's the purpose of having this pedal here, that pedal there, the tune here, the tune there, not the tune here? Why isn't it there and why isn't it here? That's what I think is the value of doing these labeling exercises. It's not just to do the labeling. That is like a head exercise. But once you ask these questions of why is it like this and why did Bach choose to do it that way, then you can really feel the heartbeat of the music. At least that's what it's like for me. And that's why I feel so passionate about it. So the first time we have the tune. I would like to point out that asking people to circle this whole tune might almost sound redundant, because why bother? But the fact is that Bach, on some level, he's very subtle, but on the surface, he's very clear about what he's doing. And if he's giving us this whole tune, he wants to give us this whole tune. And the fact that we have it starting in the tonic and then it gets repeated, the whole thing in the dominant, is significant. So we have the tune starting in the tonic. And then we have exactly the same tune in the dominant. on E minor, where we have a different idea with a walking bass. And for people who like this type of thing, there's really nice voice exchange in this. So first we have E and G, and then we have G and E. Then we have D and F sharp, and then we have F sharp and D. That's just a way that you can prolong a chord, but it's a neat trick. And so we have this different passage, and that takes us to B minor, where once again we get the whole tune. So now I just want to stop for a second and just talk about this little segment that we have so far. Because there's a way to think about this. Well, there are two different ways to think about it, and I prefer one of them. So one way to think about it is, hey, we have a circle of fifths, because first we have it in D, then we have it in A, and then we go to E minor, we have this new idea, and then we have it in B. That's a circle of fifths. That's not my favorite way to think about it. The way I like to think about it is, we have it in D, we have it in A, and we have it in B minor. It's like the beginning of Pachelbel's Canon. And so, and that is where we have the tune. And this is just one of the reasons why I say Bach is obvious. And so that chord progression that we know so well from Pachelbel's Canon it's a stock progression from Bach's day. And so here he has built a long range piece out of it. And this section on E minor is just taking us to B minor. And you could also say with Bach that in his music, very, very simply stated, he's either somewhere or he's going somewhere. And when he's somewhere, he usually gives us the tune. Like this fugue. I made a whole video about this fugue where whenever he arrives at an important structural landing, he gives us the tune. And it's the same thing in here, in this piece. Whenever he arrives at a structural landing place, he gives us a tune. So we've got D to A to B minor, 1 to 5 to 6. And now moving on, the sounding of the tune in B minor takes us to F sharp minor. Now, that F sharp minor section's interesting and gorgeous. And the thing about it is that if we did, let's say, ascribe to the analysis that this whole thing is a big long circle of fifths, the F sharp minor would be the next step in that circle of fifths. The F sharp minor is also the next step in that Pachelbel Canon chord progression. So it is just very possible to analyze the whole thing in terms of a circle of fifths. But the other thing is that this F sharp minor section kind of harks back to the E minor section that we discussed earlier, in that it has that same cool voice exchange. It has a similar kind of walking bass, but this section here now is longer, and it also harks back to the tune a little bit with that beautiful and really striking ascending minor third. And so this F sharp minor section now takes us to the key of G, where once again, and for the last time, we have the tune. So now I would like to back up again, to go to the beginning, where in our little exercise, at first, I asked people to circle the pedals. Now, I think that when Bach gives us a pedal, no, talking about our day and age, like if we have when we have a pedal like that, it's often kind of like to give something energy. Maybe it's to fill out the sound with something that doesn't really have, let's say, meaning, but it's a sound. And it kind of propels the music forward just by its repetitive sound, or its underlying, like it'll cushion sound. I have looked at a lot of Bach's pedals, and he doesn't really use them like that. When Bach has a pedal, what I find is that it gives the music a lot of tension, because the pedal is kind of holding back and the rest of the music is moving forward. Like Bach doesn't normally just kind of sit somewhere and not do anything. There's always this forward push. And so if one part of the music is pushing forward and the other part is staying still, like to me that really creates like an internal tension. And I feel it from the beginning of this piece when we go, it's like, oh my gosh, we're not going anywhere. And now we have this chord and we have that note again. So we have that chord and onwards. And then at the end, here, this is the last time that we get the pedal, and we get it as a tritone. So once we have this tritone, according to the law, it has to move. That absolutely must resolve itself. And it does. And now we're landing on A, and we have the pedal on A. And we get the whole thing again with the pedal. And then when we get to E minor, we definitely don't have any kind of bass pedal. We've got some nice motion in the bass. And then we get to B minor. I find when you hear the pedal in B minor, just because it's like the minor key, it's 6, we just had this like sense of motion, like we felt like we were going somewhere. Now we're pulling back again. That, to me, that pedal is just so, I want to say the word fraught. And so, jumping back ahead, we've landed on G. Now we're going to have our whole tune again with the pedal. But then here, when we hear this, we know something's up. And then we get that pedal one more time, and it's a tritone. And then tritone has to resolve. But then what we get is we get that again and again. And then it just kind of soars away. We don't get like he could have done that. But it's, and again, I just find that is so significant, like the way that pedal is kind of holding us back, and then the way when we're kind of like, all right, we're on this pedal, we just throw it out the window and fly away, and then we land on what is a lot of people's favorite part. And then that part is followed again by another pedal, and this pedal is up in the melody. And so we've had this pedal, like the little neighbor note motive. And now we're just throwing everything to the wind, and we've got the same dominant pedal up in the soprano voice. And so these two dominant pedals, they sort of, like they act to me like they wrap or they hold up. That's like they hold up this section. And like this section, I really find, talking about pedals, the way Bach has the pedal in the melody, like that single repeated note, where first it's on the downbeat and then for the next 2 beats it's on the middle 8th note. Like that whole section, the fact that it's kind of like nestled in these dominant pedals, and then it's got these little melodic pedals on the offbeats, it's just, everything is just keeping that section like up in the clouds. And then after this dominant pedal, we resolve back to D, but without the melody and the soprano. And then after that, everything that happens to take us to the end. So I'd like to go back to the discussion of the circle of fifths. Now, and I'd like to go back to it in relation to what I was saying before, that in Bach's music, very simply put, He's either going somewhere or he's arriving somewhere, or he is somewhere. And when he arrives somewhere, he gives us the tune. But when he's going somewhere, the way he goes is by a circle of fifths. Like a circle of fifths is his highway. And so let's just say that we analyze this piece in terms that it's just a great big circle of fifths. So we're going from D to A to E to B to F sharp minor, and then the circle of fifths is over. And so we go to G. That would be like saying the whole reason for this whole long range piece is so that Bach can take us to an entry on the subdominant. Like, it doesn't make sense like that. But if you hear it and really feel it, like this is like a really broadened out telling of that Pachelbel Canon progression. It's like the reason that everything's happening, it's to take us to that section where we have the dominant pedal and then this wonderful section where it's just like the skies open up and then another dominant pedal above that. Like that's where it's going. And after we've arrived there and after we've done that, we just make a big about face turn around and head home. And everything that happens after that is to take us home. And we get this beautiful Neapolitan chord that tells us that we're about to get to our final dominant. And then there's this little flourish. And we're back home. And once again, we get the tune back in the tonic key. And this time even, that pedal that I was talking about at the beginning lasts even longer, so it's even more kind of intense. Then we have a quick cadence and we're done. And so that is what I wanted to share in this video, is the way that I perceive the structure of this piece. To me, it's just absolutely magical, the way Bach has built it, using the tune like as his real pillars for this real stock progression, and then how he gets to the dominant chord and how he sort of nestles in this wonderful part kind of in D inside this dominant pedal, and then takes us back, takes us home, and gives us the tune one last time. So I hope you found this helpful. As always, you can let us know by commenting below. If you want to find out when new videos are uploaded, you can subscribe to the channel, turn on your notification. If you'd like to buy some scores for the sonatas and partitas, we have them at our website, and we also have a newsletter where we can let people know when new resources are added to that website, and all that is available at sonatasandpartitas.com.